Press B to cancel.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Press B to Cancel. My name is Guy Prime, and with me today, Palsh 109.
Who are you talking to?
Everybody.
It's only me and you here in Discord.
Yeah, but I mean, like, eventually there's going to be, them or they.
Oh, I guess so. Okay.
I believe
Hi,
that our downloads
hi,
are
everybody.
nearly double digits, so yeah, them. I'm specifically talking to my parents. Thank you guys for supporting Press B to Cancel. Today we're talking about Final Fantasy IV. I'm kidding, although it will probably come up. Today, Palsh and I are going to be discussing formative gaming experiences. By that, I simply mean games that we played when we were being molded and, when we were impressionable, I suppose, youngsters, being initiated into the gamer life.
I'm still like an impressionable adult, but I like to think I'm a little bit smarter than when I was like 6. I hope, because that was 30 years ago.
That's fair. Okay, well then you can talk about recent games.
Let's just assume I am. I know.
We'll assume so. All right, so what we're talking about today is games from our youth when we were coming up in the video game. For me, it's the golden age. I assume Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that kind of era, the Genesis. So we're going to be talking about not just our favorite games, but games that, when we played them, shaped us into the gamers that we are today. Paul, does that kind of category make sense to you?
The gamer that we are? Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. So that was the kid that wanted to play everything and thought he beat everything, but he really was just like, I want to try this one. No, I want to try this one. I want to try this one. So, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go and start with you because I'm still iffy on the on the content of the idea. When we talk about formative gaming experiences, things from your childhood that really made an impression, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And why?
Man, I want to say Final Fight because I wanted to kick ass, but no, that's probably not it. That was just satisfactory,
Mm-hmm.
trying to kick my ass or kick people's asses through the city and save my girlfriend. So maybe that was it. But no, I think a lot of it was just for me the formative stuff. I didn't really recognize as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It was more just the satisfaction of playing games. I couldn't stop playing them. I was like, ooh, Zelda 2. Ooh, this and that, like Battletoads. I never got past the second level or third level, Turbo Tunnel, like everybody else. So I think a lot of it was just kind of trying out everything and seeing what I actually liked because the younger I was, the more I just wanted to play any game in general.
Sure. Well, as you're playing any game in general, like, did you come across anything, even as you played it or as you beat it, where you were like, there was something about that stood out to you, something that set it above or apart from the others, where you kind of, how do I say, have you ever seen a movie or performance that was so incredible that even as you left the theater or the venue, you can't, like, it doesn't leave you? Do you know what I mean? Like, it just kind of stays with you for a couple days. Have you had any video games that have done that for you?
Yeah, for movies it was super bad.
Right, but yeah, video games. What's your? You, by the way, Superbad, you are showing tremendous emotional depth and complexity today, my friend.
It was like that awkward time in my life, but it was on the big screen, and I don't know. I'm having trouble thinking about it because it's more okay. I think by the time Super Nintendo came around, I was a little bit more into certain kinds of games. I wasn't trying to play everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably gonna say something like, of all things, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Really?
Because it's it's easy mode. Everyone makes fun of how easy it is and simple, but it was formative for me because it was the first time I played this role-playing game first before I watched like my brothers play it. My brothers played Final Fantasy IV, fell in love with that game, but I beat Mystic Quest by myself, and my brother basically watched. He joined in every now and then, but it was basically me doing all the work, all the heavy lifting. And so when I kind of got that role-playing thing, you just kind of, I want to be the hero. I want to be, saving the town or saving the girl or whatever. So I think that was probably one of the most satisfying. I mean, it's not like I came out of it and said, "Yeah, I want to be a guy that shrugs for comedic value every time somebody says something," but because that's essentially the main arc for him. Just, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you just kind of did it. So I don't know. It's been really cool to think about, but at the same time, it was those formative experiences for me was probably more like subconscious than anything. I haven't actually put that thought into it until maybe the last 10, 15 years.
Interesting. I kind of have this theory about people who are super into RPGs, which includes myself, but I think there's a certain healthy amount of ego that goes into the people who want to sink dozens of hours into a single game. Part of it is, of course, the heart and dedication behind the process of going, beginning to end, learning these characters. But I think the ego side of it, because I'm 98% ego. For anybody who hasn't met me, I'm incredibly egotistical, in the best sort of handsome way.
It's that prog musician in you. That's all it is.
Oh my God, we're not getting into that.
Yeah.
But I think the reason I say that is it's not enough to just show up, blast some guns, and run around and do flips for 20 minutes like in Contra. There's going to be a lot of story and a lot of hours and grinding dedicated to my story, and by the time I save the universe, y'all are going to know everything about me instead of I'm the guy in the blue pants. You know what I mean? And
I can see that.
Yeah, so when I came up with this short list of the most formative gaming experiences for me, a good number of them were from the Final Fantasy franchise, specifically 4, which you and I both know we love. We don't need to rehash all of that, but 7 as well. And the reason that I say that, other than the ego thing, is 7 specifically. I was 13 years old when that came out. I sunk in, I think it was 60 or 70 hours, my very first playthrough of it. And by the time it was done, aside from just how weird the ending was in my 13-year-old brain, I was like sad. Like there was that melancholia that comes with, what am I going to do now? It's like when you finish an amazing book or the credits start to crawl in a movie that really impacted you. You just stop and you're like,
lost feeling.
Yeah, I'm not ready to leave that world. And so, with Final Fantasy VII, I don't even think I finished the entire ending. I reset and erased my original file because I didn't want the option to go back and rebeat it and watch the ending. I just wanted to start the game anew and try to hold on to that first playthrough feeling, that blind run-through feeling before I knew that what it was called. Because when you devote yourself to it and it's done, what are you going to do?
You know what? I kind of had a lot of that too because I spent so many hours. I just sunk like a good 300 hours or something into that game when I was in high school, and that was years after it came out. But I think for me, one that I know that like gives me nostalgia for at the same time, and I felt a little bit more connected to, was one that's not as popular, but it's still, a famous one. It's Legend of Dragoon. And that's around the same era,
right?
And
yeah.
It plays. It plays like a Final Fantasy game, but you have the timed hits and stuff, and it's satisfying, and just that I don't know. There's something about the arc. There was definitely gaps in where the story kind of dropped off, and cheap. Not so much gimmicks, but like just cheap ways to shoehorn stuff in, and especially near the end. But I just remember caring about the characters, because in Final Fantasy VII, you lose, who. I'm not saying her name because out of respect,
That super sexy chick, Sephiroth.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a similar one, but it's not so much like a possible love interest. It's more like a bromance because you lose someone close to you pretty early in the game. Like, probably within the first quarter to the first third or something like that. I can't remember how early. It's been a while. But I just remember being like, no, man, because I used to name characters after myself and my friends. So then my friend died, and I'm like, no. So I think that gave me quite the emotional response now. So the first time I played an RPG now, so I don't want to have that experience again. I kind of leave all the names the same when I can choose them because I'm like, okay, no, I don't want it. I want to have the gravity of it stay in this world. So I was like, okay, no, like I didn't expect my friend was dead in real life because he died in the game. But
Right.
It did kind of hit you in the stomach, and I'm like, okay, this is you fall in love with your girl or whatever. You're trying to rescue her. Your friend dies. I just thought it had some really cool angles in there, and it just made me think. And being an impressionable young kid who desperate to have a girlfriend and stuff, it was like, yeah, this could be my story kind of deal. Right. So that was, I got to say, yeah, that's probably one of the most formative experiences for early junior high, early teenage kind of years.
Yeah. And see, this is where I'm an asshole because I used to do that too. I would name characters in games after myself and then people in my orbit. And if a character ended up dying that was not somebody I was okay with having to deal with that emotionally, I would immediately think to myself who I was going to name that person the next time I played it.
Yeah.
But, to your point about, like, the formative years and the emotional aspect of it, I think RPGs lend themselves to the emotional half because of the character development. And
right.
At the point in time that you and I are kind of discussing, for me, Final Fantasy VII, early teens, that's when a lot of kind of emotional development, I think, really does happen, and emotional growth. So it would make sense that those would be formative and lasting experiences, at least I think for people of our generation, the 30 to 40, 45-year-old demographic. But that's, yeah. Because then I think about some of the other games on my list. They are formative, but not so much for the emotional reasons. But like, Contra. Now, I've said this on stream and probably on the podcast before, but legitimately, if you were ever to see a home video from my childhood, it would be, if we're not outside playing something, you're going to hear Contra or Kung Fu playing in the background. Now, I was pretty good at Kung Fu even at an early age, but Contra I had to work at, and as I started beating it, the game became shorter and shorter as I could beat it quicker and quicker. But when I beat Contra, I remember thinking, like, okay, I can be a part of the conversation now. I don't have to ask my older brother to finish it or my cousins. I can eat at the big kid table, in this regard. So that was, one sort of thing. Or, Batman the video game. That was a movie that I wasn't really even allowed to watch right away because it came out when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old. And
I never saw it till I was almost 20, 21.
The movie?
Yeah,
it's great.
Like I played the games and stuff, but I never actually sat down and watched the movie until I was almost 20.
And Michael Douglas
crazy.
Keaton, if you're listening to this, I'm a big fan.
Michael Douglas.
Actually, Michael Keaton's real name is Michael Douglas, but this is true. Because of Screen Actor Guild rules, no two actors can have the same name, because of whatever legal purposes through the SGA, or SAG. So he had to come up with a stage name, and it was Michael Keaton, but his real name is Michael Douglas. Anyway, not important. But no, I remember watching my cousins, playing Batman and beating it with relative ease. Who knows how long they worked on it? But that was one that I really had to work for. And by the time I beat it, that was a big impact on me because not only am I a huge fan of the Batman mythos, as I think most people are in the world anymore, but even from a young age, that was just this thing. And then when I beat it, I'm like, okay, I don't know. It's fucked up to say, like, it's a part of me now. You know how, like, people used to eat their enemies' brains so that they could absorb their own powers?
Right.
Same thing, but with video games. I don't eat the video game, but once I beat it, like, okay, it is
now part of me.
This is part of me now. So those were, when we talk about formative things, I don't want to just talk about the emotional. But there's also those kind of like personal badges of pride or badges of honor. What do you got for those?
Okay, yeah, you just kind of sparked something in my head there now, because I remember the first time I ever played a game was the original Super Mario Bros. And my brother, I thought it was brand new when he got it. I thought, like, Nintendo was out for years by now, but I was too young to know any better. And I turned 5, and I remember my brother bought one at the store called Woolworths. I don't know if that was in the U.S. or if it's just a Canadian thing. Probably just Canadian thing. But he bought it, and I remember him reaching up to the top of the shelf to get it, and he was so excited, and I was jumping up with joy because he was excited, but I didn't even know what it was. And then he brought it home, we were playing it, and I remember just everybody sitting on the floor, and I'm 5 years old, and I'm like trying to stay up late, watch them play. And they finally let me play and did the man for man kind of thing that everyone did as kids. Everyone takes a turn. And I finally jumped over like the first Goomba in probably 3 or 4 attempts, It took that many lives for me to do it. And then I just remember everybody clapping like, hey, good job, right? And so it was like the first time I ever had like an achievement in a video game kind of deal. And I remember that always looking up to my brothers because they're almost like one's 10 years older than me. The other one's like 9. So there was a big gap. And so they got better at video games than I did. But I caught up to them really quickly to the point where they were in, was it high school, I think? And my oldest brother was playing Street Fighter 2 on Super Nintendo. And his best friend was there. And they got stuck on Blanca. And I remember they were just mad. They were, one step away from cursing because they wouldn't curse around me because, trying to be good role models. And yeah, so they went to the corner store to get some chips and Pepsi and stuff like that, just because they we needed to step away for it.
Yeah.
And I picked up the controller. I remember it being in my brother's room. The lights were off and it was in the middle of the afternoon on like a Saturday. And I just picked up the controller and boom, first time took out Blanca.
Oh snap!
Then got like three matches in, like 3 fights won without losing by the time they came back. And they're like, "Did you start over?" No. How'd you do it? I don't know. And then they were like, "Oh yeah!" And so it was just like it's like when like the little kid saves the day kind of thing. That's what it felt like. I might as well have been like up on someone's shoulders in a parade is what it felt like.
It's the first time you beat the old man at basketball. That kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But that sucks that they weren't there to see that. And I'm glad they celebrated you as opposed to being like, why would you rob me of that?
No, they were like, they wouldn't have expected it is the best part. So when I finally did, I just picked it up and I was like, okay, cool. And I got it. And it made me feel like I never saw it, but I felt like the wizard.
Yeah.
I was like, I just knew it was about a guy that was good at games. I was like, yeah, I'm the wizard.
Yeah. Well, and it's before Good Will Hunting came out. That was your Good Will Hunting moment.
Yeah.
Who is finishing all of these advanced equations when nobody is in the classroom? Oh, it's the janitor. Matt Damon.
It's really just someone spamming Hadouken.
No, don't do that to yourself. Take it again from the ego-ridden maniac. You need to hype it up. You either need to say it was a final blow sort of situation, next person to even get blinked at dies, or flawless victory.
Flawless victory.
There you go. From now on, that's the story. Your brothers, they weren't talented enough, skilled enough to take down Blanca. I mean, who knows? Blanca's one of the hardest people. Maybe only 4 people ever have beaten Blanca. They went for Pepsi and chips at Woolworths or whatever the fuck. And do you guys have Pepsi up there? And yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think they call it RC Cola up here.
And then they came back and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And you're like, "Who the hell was my bison? My bison was easy. The ending to this game sucks." And then walk away from the explosion. Which, by the way, RC Cola is delicious.
I have an RC Cola cooler in my workshop
I
got from an old job. And apparently it would work if you just get the compressor. But I'm like, no, I'm just using it for storing tools and stuff.
Tasty, refreshing tools.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, gotta keep this router table nice and chilly.
Zelda 2. You had mentioned Zelda 2 in the opening. That was actually on my list as well. I want to talk about Zelda 2 for a second, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Okay, so I had found my copy of Zelda 2 in a place called the Book Barn in Joplin, Missouri. The same place I bought my copy of Metal Storm for $2.99.
Okay.
Zelda 2, at the time I was young enough, I didn't really remember which Zelda was which, but I remember the gold cartridges.
Yeah. One was silver and one was gold. Is that how it worked?
Wait, what?
Was one silver and one gold?
No,
or
both
were they
were
both gold?
Both were gold.
Okay, cool.
So I picked up Zelda 2 and had gone home, and I didn't really remember the games or the graphics. I remembered the breakfast cereal that Mario and Zelda both had when I was a kid. So I just remembered the gold cartridge. So at this point in time, it's 95, and we don't have internet in our homes. Like your rich family members or friends had that, but we certainly didn't. And the public library that was half a block away from my house did. So Zelda 2 is very special for me in that I bought the game. I was still probably too young to really figure out a lot of things for a game like Zelda 2. Because, I'm full of ego, but I'm also an idiot. Well documented. So I remember walking my
Quote number 11.
my 10 or 11-year-old self over to the public library and waiting for one of the 3 or 4 computers to be free so that I could use the dial-up, whatever they had at the library, to look up maps for Zelda 2. And so I would print those off, pay my dime per sheet, take them home, study these maps, play the game. And I did that for what seemed like, years. There's probably half of a summer because summers lasted forever when you're a kid. And
Right.
I remember the week it probably took me to figure out, so probably 2 days, to figure out the final Ganon, dungeon at the end. And I remember beating that game and feeling like, okay, I just beat an RPG, like a questing game, a big kid game on my own, not because I saw what somebody else did, but I put in the time, worked on it, printed out the papers, paid my dime,
Yeah.
and I pieced it together myself. Whereas with Final Fantasy IV, which was my first RPG I ever beat, and obviously a huge game in my history, but Zelda 2 was the first one that was just me. It was just me, and I did that, and that was like a, the first time you tie your shoes sort of thing. You don't ever want to untie your shoes. You just want to show everybody and tell everybody that you did that. Whereas anybody could have done it. It's tying your shoes. Who gives a shit?
That's why I keep them tied, and I just slip my feet inside instead of tying them up every time.
And then you retire after that from shoe tying, so you can go out on top.
Yeah, man. Then you just stick with Velcro because it's like, well, fuck, I got nothing else to prove.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up in Velcro shoes when I'm old, anyways. This is fine. But no, I've always loved Zelda 2. We've always had discussions on various streams about which Zelda is bae, and for me, it's 2 for that reason. Like, that was before the ego took over, but that was probably one of the seeds that germinated. Whatever word I'm saying is the correct one, but it.
It is now. Through the power of editing.
Yeah, no, through the power of lore that we can control. Yeah, so I've always loved Zelda 2 for that reason. Do you have any of those kind of big kid games that you just did on your own for the first time where you're like, okay, I'm capable. Even if it took me forever, I got it done.
Oh, man. There was some games were over my head, like ActRaiser with the building sim. SimCity I used to like playing, but I'd never get very far because I'd just spend all my money real quick and trying to build stuff. So there was a lot of games that I wouldn't touch that my older brothers would because, they were a little bit more mentally prepared for it, I guess. But I remember going with Sim Ant for some reason, and I really took to that game, even though I never got very far with it. I never beat it. I didn't know if you could beat it back then, and I just really liked it because it was basically edutainment, but packaged to make it feel like a video game. I don't know, that I think it was because nobody else in the house played it, and I tried to show my older brothers one time, and they were like, I don't get it, and I had to explain it to them, so that was kind of like, yeah, because I'm the baby, so when your older brothers are asking you for help, and you're like 10 or 11 years old, it's kind of like, I've made it.
Oh, wow, yeah. See, I don't think I've ever had that experience where my older brother has ever had to ask for my help with something. Not
I'm gonna
that.
talk to your older brother.
Say what?
I'm going to have a talk with your older brother.
Well, he and I, at a certain point, speaking of, formative games, our taste in video games diverged from each other. He was never into RPGs. He's great at Tecmo Bowl. I've beat him. If I were to say, like, the win ratio for him to me is like 1-to-1, like 50-50, he would take issue with that. But he's got a very different skill set. Guitar Hero, and sports games, whereas I'm RPGs and shit like that. But then we have this really cool like Venn diagram in the middle of all the stuff from our childhood: Ninja Turtles, Contra, the Mario games. See, one of the things, like, I figured I would put Mario Brothers on this list for formative stuff, but I can't, because that was. Well, I guess I could, because Mario 3 is so great. Mario 2 I have good memories with, but it didn't really forge anything inside me until Mario 64. This is the only Mario game on my list, and here's why. Mario 6 came out in, I think, 96, right? I was like 12 years old, 13 years old, and my brother at that point was not really into video games. He had a Sega, but he had like NBA Jam and sports games. He had Sonic, and we didn't really game too much together, but the neighborhood kids I would play games with, and our neighbors across the street, they got a 64, and they had Pilot Wings and they had Mario. So we played Mario 64, and I was one of the older ones, but not the oldest, but I was probably the better of the video game players out of that group. So I was kind of the pioneer of 64.
That's always the good feeling, too, knowing it's like, yeah, I can do this better than you.
That's
As a
right.
kid, it's just like, now I'm like, it's no competition, and I enjoy watching my friends stream games, and when they struggle, I'm like, it's cool. People enjoy the struggle. But as a kid, watching someone struggle is more infuriating, because I'm just like, let me do it. So,
well, but that was the first time where people looked up to me as a gamer. You know what I mean? Instead of me watching my older cousins or the older people on the block, that was the kids handing me the controls and saying, "Can you do this for me?" or whatever. So we got through Mario 64, and I don't remember if it was all 120 stars or not. I doubt it, because I didn't have like gamer guides and all that. So it's probably just over 60. Again, I couldn't tell you. But I remember playing 64, and there were like 5 or 6 of us from the neighborhood who were sitting in that house, and it was, throwing Bowser into the bomb for the last time and picking up that, or not even picking up the key, but, doing the whole ending, and it's not that everybody stood up and clapped. I just felt like I performed some sort of open heart surgery. But it's not about me. It's about the legacy, I'm
Right.
kidding. But Mario 64 was formative for me in that was a coming of age sort of thing, where I realized, okay, I'm now where the people I looked up to were when I was a kid, if that makes sense.
yeah.
And of course, Mario 64, being a 3D type game as it was, that was a groundbreaking system in a lot of ways. That was a really cool moment for me. Was being the guy to beat 64.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think we got a werewolf in the chat.
I'm just a fly on the wall. Shh.
Are you recording?
I am.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. We're talking about formative gaming experiences.
Yeah, dude. Do you have anything like that was memorable for you growing up? Something that you remember for personal reasons?
Bubble bath
Emotional
babes?
response? Anything? Bubble bath
I
babes?
always remember I was playing Super Mario Brothers at the age of 2 back in 1985.
You formed memories at the age of 2?
I did. I'm a little bit before, actually. I'm a bit freaky like that.
I'm not surprised. And God, your voice sounds great tonight.
It's a little werewolf after dark.
Yeah, I'm thirsty. What was
The
that?
wife and kid are in bed, so I got to keep it down.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, let's all start whispering.
Yeah. You were about 700 days old and you were playing Mario.
Yeah, better than my mom, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I will always remember Super Mario Brothers for the NES as like the game I played as a kid, and I think I talked about this on a previous episode where I actually assigned word sounds to the game sounds. So like the pipe was kibe kibe kibe,
Mm-hmm.
jumping was blore.
Blower?
Yeah, blore.
Kibe.
Like that's And I think the shell was Hiccup.
Oh yeah, that fits.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah,
Either that or Woodup. It might have been Woodup.
What up?
I don't know, but yeah, that was basically my most formative gaming experience.
Okay, well, hold on. I want to point this out. Palsh and I are talking about like emotionally formative things. You're talking about like forming words because you were
No.
2 fucking years old.
No, I mean that's when I started playing games.
Of course.
I thought that's what this was. If it's emotional, then we skip ahead to like age 10.
Oh no, it's not all emotional. That was more the RPG section. I was just being silly because you were 2 years
I
old.
was about to skip ahead to an RPG.
Well, go ahead, please.
Final Fantasy IV, of course.
Of course.
It was my first RPG. It
Yeah.
was I didn't know games could have that sort of storytelling. And it blew 10-year-old me's mind away. I was like, "What? There's things besides killing vampires and evil robots, you know?"
Which is the staples of the era, to be honest.
And honestly, both of the things you just described are in Final Fantasy 1. Vampires and robots.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But there's also, death and loss and things like that, and it was like, holy crap. And
Sure.
I honestly think that made me appreciate more other game formats that ventured to tell stories, like the Mega Man X franchise. At least the first one, it explored death and loss.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect. That's actually on my list. That is the one game on my list I hadn't mentioned yet was Mega Man X.
So, just because I miss so much, just run me through real quick the games you guys did talk about already.
Okay, well, Palsh opened up by joking about Final Fight, and then he had some really cool experiences showing up his brothers in Street Fighter. So that kind of covered our base with like the formative, like beating your old man at a game of basketball for the first time kind of feeling. I addressed Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VII as the emotional heft of like finishing a great movie or finishing a great book, where as soon as it's done, what do you do? You have that melancholic feeling. There's the games, from your youth where like you beat it and you didn't need anybody else's help. You can eat at the big kid table is kind of how I described that. So those, the formative conversation is mostly just like, what was the game where you did something and then you realized, I am in one way or another.
That's an interesting thought. I think the first difficult game that I beat that like really gave me an adrenaline rush when I did so was, gosh, I want to say it was either Blaster Master or Dragon Spirit. It was one of those. And I'm not even a shmup guy, but I had Dragon Spirit on the NES and I loved that game. And both of those games gave me that sensation of like, holy crap, I'm about to beat it. Holy crap, I beat it.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the next 20, 30 minutes after you beat it, you're just so full of adrenaline, you're shaking and you can't contain your excitement, and you're like 8 years old and you're like, oh my God, now what?
Yeah, that's a great feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it didn't happen for me until I was like 22.
Shit.
It's not a feeling I get all that much anymore. I kind of miss it a little bit.
Really?
I get it with the odd game, but not regularly.
I think games that have timers, or like racing games, specifically racing games for me, Rock and Roll Racing, Top Gear, those kind of games growing up, like I had a lot of photo finishes. And, when you increase those difficulties from novice to, veteran and all that kind of stuff, and those races, Mario Karts, all the Mario Karts, the higher the CC, the closer the finish, the more adrenaline, the shakiness, and the testing of your metal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a bit of a junkie when it comes to that with video games, absolutely.
Do you test your Saint Anger medal? It's the weakest medal, right?
It is the weakest. To date, still my favorite meme. And there's some really great Nickelback memes out there as well. But, okay, sorry, go ahead, Werewolf.
I think the last great formative gaming experience I had was probably with Lunar Silver Star Story Complete for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was nearing the end of the game, and I so didn't want it to be over
Mm-hmm.
that I kind of slowed down my pace of playing it. I don't know if you guys have ever done that,
Mm-hmm.
but like you play it a little less every day just because you don't want it to be done yet. You want to keep enjoying the experience. And I went and I bought a Sega CD and the original Lunar for Sega CD and Lunar 2 for the Sega CD. So that way I'd have plenty of Lunar after the PlayStation game was done. So then when I got all that, I tested it, made sure it worked. Once I knew it worked, I just, blew through the tail end of Lunar for PlayStation and immediately started up on the Sega CD version.
Right. You had something else to go to? Yeah. What were you saying, Palsh?
Oh, I was going to say my way of stretching it out was not playing it less. It was playing it more, but it was like Final Fantasy VII where I sunk, hundreds of hours into it. I would just like level up for the sake of just keeping on going, and it's like the bragging point of saying I can kill the last boss in one hit or kind of deal. So that was how I stretched it out. I'd never play less. I'd play more. I'd do it more conservatively kind of way.
And yeah, something I had mentioned earlier, Wulff, about Final Fantasy VII was I didn't even watch the entirety of the ending. I was thrilled that I'd beat it, but I was sad that I had beat it because, again, I didn't know what I was going to do next. So instead of watching the ending, I just erased the file and started over. Which, I mean,
wow.
Yeah, but to me, still no regrets at all on that one. It's just more so than even Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy VII was that game where I just wasn't ready for it to be done. I didn't want to quit playing it. I didn't want to slow it down. I'll just play it again now that I kind of know. Plus, after a first playthrough, there's always more stuff to go out and to discover.
You know who not to name,
right?
So-and-so.
Right. So, to Werewolf's point, as we kind of start to wrap things up, when he had said his last formative experience that he had was, with that, how about you, Palsh? What do you think is the most recent formative experience that you had?
You know what? I want to say BioShock Infinite.
Okay.
And it's been out almost 10 years, if not more. But that game really, oh man, it's the first game I remember that the ending made me cry. And I'm like, wow. Like, I was like, it's a fucking video game. I'll never, I don't get it. I don't see why people cry at movies. I don't see, that's what I was like when I was a kid. But this one, it hit me. And it was just, it's in a world that I don't understand. It's very, Americana. It's very set in an era that I have no familiarity with. And then they had that fantasy sci-fi angle to it where, you're in a floating city in the sky. But the story itself, the characters, it's just so easy to fall in love with the characters, and there is an actual sense of loss. So it was really cool to see how it just went through, and you start out and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, let's do this. And by the end of it, I'm just like, I'm not ready for this. And the ending is kind of a mind fuck too, so it makes you want to play it again.
I think my last or most recent formative experience in video gaming was March 31st, 2015. It's a date I've quoted many a time since starting Twitch, but it was the day that I had beaten Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original NES Ninja Turtle game. It was on the I've got, of course, actually a couple copies of the cartridge, but I beat it on the Nintendo Wii as part of their VC. And that was one game that nobody was really able to beat thoroughly without the use of the Game Genie. And to beat it without the assistance of other people. Did you just talk a Luger into the mic? What was that?
I should have just went or something. Not a. Yeah, you said it wrong.
Oh, okay, sorry. But no, I remember beating the Game Genie beating Ninja Turtles.
You got it.
Yeah, without any assistance or any codes or anybody else watching, just on my own. It was the closing of a a book that was left open on the table for way too long.
Right.
It was this really great moment for me because I just remembered all the moments that we rage quit as kids. And the only thing that could have made it better was if my cousins and my brother had been with me, because those were my brothers in arms with that game. Nobody could really figure this game out. Like the dam was fine. Finding the Technodrome we could do, but then shit gets nasty and tears were shed. And I remember beating it and feeling like at peace with that game finally. And I've gone back and beaten it a number of times since, and I still love that and have incredible nostalgia. But it was the ending of that chapter for that game of just, okay, I can beat this now. As silly as it sounds, it was a big moment for me, enough that I will forever remember that date.
What's that like? The only time I've actually gotten out of my way to beat something harder like that to me, like that I was always like impossible to me, was Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh yeah, but what a solid
that was
victory,
only a few
right?
years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm very proud of that one.
Fuck yeah, fuck yeah. So I admit, okay, this has been. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I hope we do more of these types of episodes. Of course, I love all the episodes that we do, but there's something special from the time that I had seen this as an available option for an episode. It's been in my mind. I'm glad that we were able to talk about it. I'm thrilled that Werewolf joined us.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to sneak in here.
Yeah, and we may have to do another episode like this with all four of us, because I'm going to want to ask Sick Jake these questions as well. So
yeah,
that was special, and I feel like anytime that I can get to know more about you guys, I love it. And anytime that I can let more of the world know more about me, I know they love it. Because again, I'm 98% ego. So you're welcome. That said, before we close out, are there any other memories or things about this kind of category you guys would like to mention?
one more. I'm gonna quick one is Arkham Knight, the Batman game, the last in the series.
Mm-hmm.
That one with the character, I don't want to spoil anything, but that one, the main enemy behind it, the Arkham Knight, when it gets revealed, I was like, I saw it coming from a mile away, and that didn't ruin it for me. That actually added to it, because I was like, first off, I caught it, and I'm like, yes.
Right.
But the way the villain in that game, the main antagonist, I guess is what you'd say, the way he related to Batman and the story arc between them, it was... That one really got me going, and I think that's probably when the whole Batman DC universe kind of thing became my thing, because I was just like, that hit me in the feels. And so yeah, it's a really cool game. There's some tacky moments with the Batmobile, but I still love it.
That's great. Werewolf?
For me, I would say one of the lesser moments I had since that last great one was probably with Jack and Daxter.
Are those neighbor kids?
I was...
Isn't that the serial killer that kills serial killers?
Wow. So it was toward the tail
That'd be a
end
great
of the
show.
PS2
I'd watch
era. It was the tail end of the PS2 era, so all three of them were out. They were all greatest hits, right? And my brother had the first one, and I was really digging on it. So I beat it in the middle of the night, and I just wanted more. And I loved what Jack 1 was. I ran out to Walmart at 1:30 in the morning and picked up Jack 2 and 3 for $20 each to go
That's
home
saying something, especially back
and
then.
keep playing them. And I was just so hooked. The story, to me, the franchise's story hit its stride in the second game almost immediately. And just the way they kept ramping things up throughout the franchise. At least the first three games. The fourth game that they made after Jack X was not that great. Jack X was a fun game, but it didn't really do a whole lot to expand the lore of the universe. But those three games, they had a lot of emotional moments. They had a lot of holy shit moments. And it was just something that wanted me craving more and it's the kind of story I love to share with other people.
Yeah, I like that. And to that point, and I want you guys, I'll go and update this probably sometime as an episode idea. Twitch, like favorite Twitch games that we've played on stream for people or with people. Because to that point, and to kind of bring things full circle, Final Fantasy IV, for as great as it was when I was a kid, one of my favorite experiences with that game was my first year of streaming, on Twitch. And there's certain things in my life that, because I'm egotistical, I've always felt like, okay, this game was made for me, or this thing was put in my life for me. And I always felt that way about Rocky. I felt like, or Dream Theater, I felt like these were I'm the biggest fan, or like this is just like my best kept secret. So finding out other people were into Rocky, I'm like, oh my God, you've seen that too? Well, of course, everybody's fucking seen it. So with Final Fantasy IV, I started that up, and I'm like, guys, I'm going to play this game. This is a game that's very important to me, that I love, that I know inside and out. It's a part of who I am and how I am, why I am, all that. And it turns out everybody loves this game, or a lot of people love this game. And so not just finding kindred spirits for that game, but being able to share that part of me, because it is a part of me, to be able to share that with the people in my community, the people who come to the channel to watch and tell me their stories and watch me as I play and share my stories. That was a tremendous moment. Formative, I don't know as far as video gaming. Formative, definitely as a streamer. And I think maybe we should have that episode, the four of us, where we discuss moments like that. But what a powerful and impactful thing that video games can be.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing and a blessing to be able to meet people based around that medium. So, yeah, I don't know, like I said, I guess I feel like being kind of deep today.
You're welcome.
Of course.
I make everything better.
Yeah, you do.
Hopefully I was relatively on topic for what I had to say.
Absolutely.
No, but that's okay.
I feel like he was. Or if he wasn't, I don't mind
totally
adjusting
was.
the topic to suit his needs.
This is true. No, it was good. Especially Kype Kype Kype, because I remember that from the sound effects one.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and wrap up here. Werewolf, since you were the last one here, you can be the first one to tell everybody where can they find you.
Here on Twitter. WAREWULFF. Eventually I'll be back to streaming, but I cannot say when.
God.
Kype Kype Kype.
Can we make that a
hashtag
an
Kype
emote?
Kype Kype.
Yeah, right. And Palsh 109, how about yourself, sir?
Yeah, you can find me here. I have been known to stream on occasion at twitch.tv/Palsh109. That's PALSH 109.
Very cool. And then, of course, I myself am Guy Prime. I don't need to tell you that because, I just like to hear my own name. Anyway, Guy Prime for The Therapy Couch. You can find me on twitch.tv/The Therapy Couch or on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram as The Retro Therapy. Otherwise, of course, I'm here with my boys on Press B to Cancel. Everybody, thank you for listening and for letting us get a little bit deep. This one was a little bit light on the dick and fart jokes, so I'll try to make up for that next time.
Oh, yeah.
Special thanks for music go to Arthur the Ancient, found on SoundCloud, or The Last Ancient on YouTube. For more episodes, please visit our website, pressbtocancel.com. As well, feel free to like or subscribe at Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else you like to listen to your favorite shows. As always, thank you. This has been
Press B to cancel.
Press B to